Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet.
Thanks for checking out the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Becky, and today I thought I would do a little segment about bringing kink into your relationship. Now, if you're new to kink, the idea may be a little bit scary. I mean, what do we think of when we think of kink? We think of women in tall stiletto heels. We think of men wrapped in leather, being tied up to the point of, losing blood circulation. But it doesn't have to be that scary. And in fact, a lot of people really enjoy it and need it for their own sexual satisfaction. So if it's something that you think that you're interested in, here's a couple of ways to slowly introduce the process to your partner, who may or may not be more of a vanilla person. And or if it's something that you would like to try experimenting with your partner about. So first things first, I'd like to talk about the steps in how to safely and successfully bring kink into your relationship. So you saw 50 Shades of Grey and thought to yourself, I'm kind of interested in that. Well, first of all, great. It's always, fun and exciting to think of new sexual experiences that you could have, whether by yourself or with a partner. So first of all, congratulations. You made your first step towards exploring sexually. So you saw the movie and you thought, that's something I want to try. Great. But that's also a little scary. I mean, it's a world that you don't know. So step one is forget about the extremes that you know about BDSM and focus solely on the things that interest you. So the first thing that you want to do, step one, research. And I know, sex shouldn't come with homework, but it really does. I mean, in the long run. And with BDSM especially, there's a lot of things to go into. There's a lot of different kinks to explore, and you want to make sure that you're doing that safely. But even before you get into, figuring out what you want to actually practice in the bedroom or experiment with, just research and, study your own body. There's a lot that the human body can experience. And by doing research, by, even looking up, extreme versions, the hardcore versions of BDSM, there's things that will resonate with you. And that's okay. Don't be scared. The first thing you need to understand is your body. And sometimes that can be easy. Sometimes that can be hard, especially for, people who are looking into new and different things or things that are, quote unquote stigmatized like BDSM. And there's so many great resources. I mean, you go to YouTube alone, you can find at least 12, sex therapists, psychiatrists, people in the community who are more than welcome to share their information, and their experiences as well. And in addition to all of this, knowing your body is just so important. And once you know your body, that'll be so much easier to explain to your partner how it works, what gives you pleasure. I think that there's a little bit of hesitance when it comes to telling our partners what we want in bed. And it shouldn't be hard, but for some reason it is, right? I mean, Even little directions like, I like what you're doing, but move over to the left. Or, I like, that's really good, but can you do it harder? I mean, those little tiny things can sometimes be really hard. And I mean, that's okay. It's a learning process. We're all still learning. And maybe in that research, you discover something new that you didn't even know about yourself. I mean, maybe you find something seductive about, being tied up, unable to move. Maybe you find something interesting about being suspended or, not being in control. Or maybe you're the opposite. Maybe you feel out of control a lot of the times, and that idea of being dominant over someone or being in control of, another person is interesting to you. And great. I mean, just great. I explore it, go for it and just own it. I think it can be hard to say to yourself, yes, these are the things that I like. And the fact that, first of all, the fact that you're doing this step at all, I applaud you for. It's great. And the fact that you're, also willing to open your mind to say, I don't know anything about this community. I don't know anything about the practices, but I'm interested to learn more, I think is so healthy. And even if you go on here and do the research and you're like, I don't know, like, this is a little too much for me. Like, great. At least you went in with an open mind. You see that it might not be for you. And now you can move on, and look into other interesting ways of, spicing up your sex life or, just experimenting with your partner. After your research is done, after you have an understanding of what you are looking for in this new experimentation of your relationship, then you have to ask yourself one final question. Do I trust this person? Yes, maybe you've been with them for a long time, or maybe not so long. Maybe you've known each other for a while, but do you have trust? In the BDSM community, this is a huge, huge element of it. Even though you may be starting out light to begin with, if you do plan to continue and go further and further and further until you are strapped to a cross and getting flogged, I mean, you need to know that this person is, going to be respectful. He or she is going to stop when you say stop, and you have total faith and trust in this person. The next thing you want to do after everything has been researched, after you understand your body, after you figure out what you want from this experience, then you got to talk to your partner. And this step is probably one of the scariest steps because you don't know what they're going to say. There have been cases, being honest, there have been cases of people who, bring up the idea of kink, and it raises a lot of red flags for, people who don't see themselves in that community, outside people who aren't interested in the BDSM community. These are red flags of, oh, you just want to get beat. Oh, you just want to beat me. All these are you gay can be one of them, for, a lot of men. The next thing you have to do is just communicate with your partner. Another thing that I have found in, dabbling with the BDSM community is that they're huge on communication. If you don't communicate what you want, people won't know. They're not mind readers. And you have to be upfront and honest in order to have, a more intimate relationship. So in talking with your partner, first of all, make sure there's no distractions. No, you're not making dinner. You're not watching TV. It's just, maybe you're eating dinner, or maybe you're taking a drive, or maybe you're just sitting around your house, or just hanging out with each other. Put the phones down for a minute and, have a one-on-one conversation. And you can just say, this is something I've been, kind of thinking about. And I was wondering, how you thought about it. Is this something that you'd be willing to try? And, gauge their feelings about it. They might not be into it. And if that's the case, then you move on to another conversation, and another discussion about, is this important in your life? Or they might surprise you and be like, actually, I've been thinking about, trying a couple things like that too. And, you go from there and you say to yourselves, all right, well, then you can exchange your kinks. Well, I was thinking I like it when I'm handcuffed, or I think it would be sexy if you tied me up or spanked me, or, did a little light flogging, sensation play. So in my experience, I think the biggest reaction when telling a partner that you're interested in introducing kink is fear. And, fear is okay. It's a lot to ask of a partner who doesn't, quite understand the community or, never imagined themselves being in a relationship that included kink. And all of those things are okay. And you can also, it's a great discussion to have with your partner. You both will discover new things, about yourselves, about each other. And basically you're going to get to have this new experience together, which is only going to strengthen your relationship. So you've got your first two steps. You've done your research and you've had a chat with your partner, and now you're ready to, take it into the bedroom. So I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, we're going to continue our discussion on how to safely and successfully bring kink into your relationship. So if you're enjoying this, stay tuned. Be right back.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Welcome back. We are on the GSMC Sex Podcast, and we're talking about bringing kink into your relationship. Now, as we've discussed, you've done your research, you understand your body, you understand what you want to try. You've also discussed it with your partner. You've told your partner, this is what I am into, this is what I've been thinking about, and they said, yeah, I want to try that. I want to do that with you. So now you're both on the same page. Now comes the reality of it all. Bringing it into the bedroom, starting out slow. Now, if this is both your first time within the kink community, this can seem a little strange, but that's okay. I mean, laughing in sex is totally normal. I mean, it's not like in the movies, like, let's be real. Make sure you guys have a safe word just in case. Something that you both will, would never use within the situation of sex. Pomegranate or tie, or actually no, tie's not a good one. But you know what I mean. Make sure you're bringing in a safe word with you that is, both something that you will immediately recognize. A lot of people in the BDSM community will use stoplight colors. So green means go, obviously. Yellow means this is kind of becoming a little too much for me, but don't necessarily stop. Maybe just ease up a little bit. Red means stop. All like immediately stop. There is no collecting $200. There's no passing go. One of the things that I hear a lot when talking to people about BDSM is, well, I don't want to be in pain. I don't want to be hurt. I'm not into that. Okay, great. But also BDSM is more than just pain. It's also, you've got sensation play, which could be, anywhere from feathers and satin to, pointier objects like Wartenberg wheels or spiky things, metals, and all of those things are okay. So if you're starting it slow with your partner, you may want to start with, something like feathers, ribbons, pillows, soft things, that can be really, erotic when you use them correctly. Blindfolds are great for this. You have your partner, handcuffed to the bed, they're blindfolded, they can't see anything. And then you just, slowly run ribbons up their body, or you take a feather and you run it across their chest. The fact that we can't see things intensifies those instincts of, I don't know what's going to happen next. There's something exciting in that. And when you have trust in your partner on top of it, there's a security of like, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I'm excited because I trust this person. And I know that they're going to make me feel good. They're going to give me pleasure in whatever they're doing. But also, if it's not working for me, I can tell them that it's not working. I mean, that's the bottom line. So in addition to all of this, you can use your fingertips to brush lightly on their skin. You can use your teeth to, nibble around their neck or on their chest or, anywhere on their body. It's these softer things that you can do that still qualify as kink and still will give you an idea as to, what would happen as an introductory course into BDSM. And will give you an idea of, do I want to take this further? Do I want to take the next step and go to a harder level of play? Or do I want to stay here? And, and this was enough to, kind of bring something new to the bedroom, or a new element to the relationship. The bottom line is, make sure you are checking in with your partner throughout. This is new for them. This is new for you. You want to make sure that they're not freaking out or thinking, oh no, they might not like this, or I'm doing this wrong. Continually saying like, does this feel good? Do you like that? And again, this is a new sexual element, and these are your sexual needs that they're experimenting with, and vice versa. So really making sure that you both have an understanding of, we're doing this together. I like this, that feels good. Reassuring. Essentially, you just want to check in with each other. You want to make sure that both of you are doing okay. There's this idea that sex is supposed to be quiet, or if it is loud, it's, incoherent, screaming or moaning. But it doesn't have to be that way. Don't feel embarrassed if, you're doing this for the first time and your partner isn't doing it correctly, or you're not doing it correctly. Don't feel embarrassed to say like, I don't think this is working. Like, let's try something different. And just, check in with each other. Just make sure that you both are still having a good time. So one of the last things that you want to do is aftercare. And this might seem silly, but it's especially when you start getting into a little bit of more, rougher play, if you're doing slightly more complex bondage, or let's say you are, you have rope and you're tied to the bed with your hands and your feet, spread eagle. And there's an aftercare element that you need to take into account. This means undoing the bonds, cuddling, talking to each other, just breathing, cleaning up after your scene so you can go to bed. There's a lot of different elements that aftercare can be, and especially when you're new, you get to figure that out, and that can be fun with your partner. It's a level of intimacy that you get to have with them. For some people, sex can be hard to talk about. And the one thing about kink is that you need to be able to talk. And this can be a great exercise in general of, being able to communicate more fluidly with your partner. And in aftercare, this is really important because when you're first starting to figure out each other's kinks and sexual, new sexual experiences with people, it's really good to be able to say to someone, I really liked when you pulled my hair really hard, or I really liked when you spanked me harder, or I really liked, X, Y, or Z. It could be anything. But that way they know. And make sure you, again, are continuing to reassure them of like, I'm so happy we did this. I'm glad we could experiment with each other. I think this was really successful. I had such a great time. And And even if it didn't exactly go as planned, or it wasn't, everything that you had imagined it would be, you can say, wow, that was really interesting. Maybe we should discuss how to go from here. And then you can have another conversation with your partner in terms of, that really wasn't what I was thinking it was going to be, even though I had a good time. The one thing that you have to remember through this whole process is, one, continual trust in the person is paramount. And two, you can stop whenever you want to. If you're in the middle of sex or you're in the middle of play, you can say red light and just stop and take a moment and breathe. And even then have a conversation with your partner of like, this isn't working for me. I'm sorry. Like, maybe we go back to the drawing board. Maybe this wasn't a great idea. And those things are okay too. I mean, we all want to have fun. We all want to have sex. So we need to make sure that it's safe, enjoyable, and that everyone's comfortable. However, if everything went according to plan and you're thinking to yourself, I think I might want to take it to the next level. I mean, congratulations on, one, having a great sexual experience with your partner, and being able to discuss with them after and seeing that they had a good experience too. And like I had said before, BDSM has so many different facets, that take place, in the bedroom and outside the bedroom. For a lot of people, BDSM almost becomes a lifestyle, that you can take anywhere you go. And it has, personal boundaries with yourself, but doesn't necessarily need to have a boundary of staying in your home or staying in private spaces. You can bring these things out in other facets of your life. So I'm going to take a quick break. And when I come back, I will be discussing dominant and submissive relationships and how those relationships can explore outside the bedroom. Stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the Sex Podcast on the GSMC network. I am Becky, of course, and in this episode, we've talked about how to bring kink in, research, talking with your partner, experimenting with your partner, and just generally becoming more intimate with your partner. But the next step is, kink is so multifaceted. You can do it in the bedroom. You can do it outside the bedroom. You can do it at work. There's so many different layers of kink. And one of the layers that I thought I would talk about today is called total power exchange. I have a friend who was really into this, and she had said it was something that she began to rely on daily, from her partner. She was in a long distance relationship, and one of the things that she had found so interesting about this was he could tell her commands as a dominant without necessarily being in the same room as her. Now, if you're in a relationship and you're thinking of exploring a dominant-submissive relationship, one of the things that you may want to explore is total power exchange. total power exchange, meaning the dominant person is giving commands to the submissive person. This can be as subtle as, they pick out your underwear in the morning, or they could tell you halfway through the day to take off your underwear and put it in your bag. Simple commands that are not necessarily, unsafe for work or will put your job or your social interactions at risk. But is also something fun to kind of, it's a secret that the two of you share, isn't it? And there's something really sexy about that. There's something about, even as you're starting to explore this world of, dominance versus submission, it's exciting and it's kind of secretive, and it's something that the two of you or multiple people, depending on your sexual preferences. But it's something that you and your partner can share throughout the day. And in this world of technology, it just becomes that much easier. You can have a dominant send a text, to their submissive, and it's, at 3:00, you're going to take off your underwear and you're not going to put it back on until you get home. And then that becomes an ongoing sexual fantasy in a way. It becomes kind of exciting to even get home that day, because then it's either the relief of, oh, I can wear underwear again, or it becomes, when I get home, I'm not going to need underwear again. It could be a situation where the minute you get home, the minute your partner gets home, you guys can go at it right then and there. And as you get more dependent on it, you're going to wear, these panties in the morning. You're going to take them off at 2. You can put them back on at 4. But they better be off by the time I get home tonight. And that is so sexy. Let's be real. There's definitely a sex element in control, in power. And what I've found is that most people in more controlling jobs where, they're higher up in their position, they have a lot of power, they have a lot of control, they have to make a lot of the big decisions, they end up being more submissive in the bedroom. They want someone to take control from them for a while so they can kind of relax. And relaxing could mean, your partner picked your socks that day, or your partner said, I want you to go out and get yourself a cup of coffee, because it doesn't just have to be sexual commands, right? In a lifestyle situation, it can be, I want you to take a bath, or I want you to take 30 minutes today to take care of yourself, whether that means, going for coffee, getting your nails done, walking in the park. It can be anything. And that's what's so interesting about these kinds of relationships. And if it's something that, for example, the friend I had mentioned earlier who was, really into total power exchange, she had a dominant and she has a lot of anxiety. So having someone say to her, this is the underwear you're going to wear today, at 1:00, you're going to get yourself a cup of coffee, and also checking in throughout the day, she became very dependent on it in terms of it was a way for her to relax, because she didn't have to make the decisions. She didn't have to, she could say to her dominant, I'm good, but I'm feeling really stressed out today. And then he can make a decision of, okay, she needs this, or she needs some self-care, or she needs some discipline in terms of, you need to get this done by 2:00. So you better, strap down and do it. And there's something so, 1, fascinating, and 2, it's so sexy. And especially in a relationship where you're living together, or you can be alone a lot, you can, go back to that idea of they're checking on me throughout the day, or I'm checking in with them throughout the day. And by the time I get home, we can, have really hot sex. We can check in with each other. We can be, we can continue this dialogue until, it climaxes and we end up in the bedroom anyway. there's both a sexual aspect and a non-sexual aspect. And it throws in a whole other level of intimacy, like, you know, like we've been talking about, you know, between communicating, between understanding this person's needs. It just all kind of ties, you know, back in together. The other thing about dominant and submissive relationships, that you can explore is the idea of collaring. Now, collaring is, I've had one friend say that collaring is the equivalent of giving a partner an engagement ring. This meaning, this collar, which, first of all, let's just say collars can be dog collars, they can be bracelets, they can be, you know, necklaces, they can be anklets, they can be any kind of jewelry, as long as it's representative of something. And this representation, in this context being, I am in a dominant submissive relationship. You know, this piece of jewelry, you know, even to use the engagement ring example, engagement rings mean commitment. They mean, lifetime commitment, basically. It means I am with one person and one person only. Collars mean the same thing. Collars have the same connotation of, yes, it's a little bit more specified in what kind of relationship you're in, but not necessarily so. It's a way to subtly show pride in the fact that you are part of the kink community. And additionally, it also puts on display the intimacy that you have with another person, which I think we can all relate to in wanting as humans. We all want to have that shared intimacy with someone. And whether that be through sex or friendship or romance or, you know, whatever, I think we all want it. And so there's something very empowering about wearing a collar from day to day. So now we've discussed how to bring kink in, how to explore with kink outside the bounds of your home. And again, the bottom line is creating intimacy with your partner, and fostering growth between the both of you, which is really important, I think, in any relationship, whether you're interested in exploring kink or not, is so important, in fostering in creating an atmosphere where you feel you can be totally open with another person. I think for a lot of people, that kind of intimacy really heightens sex. It really heightens the passion you feel with other people. And that's in any relationship, whether you're in heterosexual, homosexual, polyamorous, like, I mean, there's no bounds on the importance of intimacy. And one of the things that I, you know, learned over and over again in experimenting with BDSM, in talking to people within the community, is just being open and honest with your partner. And the idea that it's okay to speak your mind. Lastly, I just want to thank you guys for listening to the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Also, be sure to remember to subscribe to the show, and, you know, write a nice review, because that helps us a lot. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, so be sure to follow us there. As always, I'm your host, Becky, and thanks for listening. Have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast.